The Education Department just announced it has saved a lot of money investigating student aid fraud. Education Secretary Linda McMahon joins me now. Madam Secretary, how much money have you saved?
Good morning, Stuart. Well, I'm proud to report that we've saved or will save about $1 billion of taxpayer fraud.
Welcome back to Good Day Chicago. Several more Chicago Police Department workers are being accused of fraudulently obtaining paycheck protection loans, those PPP loans.
Tonight, a U.S. Postal Service worker is facing multiple felony charges over alleged Paycheck Protection Program loan fraud.
23 arrests. One morning, $4.6 billion gone. Chicago didn't see it coming. Nobody did. Pre-dawn, the loop still dark, lake wind cutting off the water like a blade, and somewhere on the 34th floor of a glass tower above LaSalle Street, a man named Victor Salazar was sipping his second coffee, watching ticker symbols scroll across 6 monitors, completely unaware that 200 federal agents had just sealed every exit in his building. They moved without sirens. No announcement. No warning. FBI, ICE, EARS Criminal Investigation, and Homeland Security. 4 agencies, 1 target, 1 window of silence before the city woke up. Then the doors came in, not just downtown. Simultaneously, a warehouse office complex in Bridgeport disguised as a logistics firm. A luxury residence in Winnetka where a CFO was still asleep. A River North co-working space that processed $40 million a week through fake investment accounts. 6 locations. 1 signal. Agents poured through every entrance at the same second, but what they found inside the Bridgeport warehouse, that's where this stopped being a financial fraud case. Behind a climate-controlled server room beneath a false floor built into the substructure of the building itself, investigators pulled 17 encrypted hard drives. Cartel. Grade encryption. The kind used by networks that don't deal in stocks. They deal in movement, logistics, people and product across borders. Nobody expected that. Not here. Not in a building that filed quarterly compliance reports. Victor Salazar had built something that looked on paper like a mid-size investment advisory firm. Registered, licensed, audited, or so it seemed. The Blackstone Financial Syndicate, as federal prosecutors would later call it, ran what agents described as the most sophisticated stock loan fraud network ever operated out of the American Midwest. Clients would bring in shares, sometimes legitimately owned, sometimes not, and Salazar's firm would issue loans against them. Billions in collateral, billions in leverage, and underneath every transaction, a current of laundered money so deep and so fast that it took a joint task force 3 years to even find the surface of it. 3 years to find the surface. The real operation ran beneath that, because the stock loans weren't just fraud. They were infrastructure. A financial tunnel system, invisible, legal-looking, compliant on paper, that moved money for clients who couldn't move it themselves. Shell corporations in Delaware and Nevada feeding into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Cyprus. Sham green energy funds. Fake private equity vehicles. Restaurant chains that never turned a profit but always turned a transfer. And at the center of every wire, every ledger entry, every document that looked legitimate, Victor Salazar's digital signature. He wasn't hiding. He was hiding in plain sight. And if you think the money trail is the worst part, wait. The names in those client files. Federal investigators pulled a list of account holders and cross-referenced it against law enforcement databases, financial watch lists, and 3 active DIA investigations. 14 of the accounts traced directly to front companies connected to a transnational drug trafficking network operating across the southern border corridor. Not loose connections, not circumstantial overlap. Direct, documented, traceable wire transfers from cartel-linked entities into Blackstone financial accounts, and back out, cleaned into legitimate investment vehicles. They weren't laundering drug money through the system, one federal source told investigators. They were building a financial system designed from the ground up to absorb it. The raid teams in Winnetka found something that hit harder than the servers. A locked filing cabinet. Inside it, printed records, physical paper, deliberately kept off digital systems, showing payments made to 4 individuals identified in the documents only by code designations. Cross-referencing those codes took investigators less than 6 hours. 2 of them matched names on the payroll of a regional financial regulatory office. 1 matched a paralegal at a firm that had represented Blackstone in 3 separate compliance reviews. The 4th name, the 4th code, matched a sitting alderman from Chicago's 42nd Ward. An alderman whose committee had fast-tracked zoning approvals for 2 of Blackstone's warehouse locations. That's when the case changed character entirely. This wasn't a fraud ring that had gotten big. This was a fraud ring that had deliberately embedded itself into the civic infrastructure of the city. Permits, approvals, oversight appointments. Every layer of the onion had been peeled back and replaced with a paid alternative. You don't build something like this accidentally, a federal prosecutor said during the initial briefing. Every protection this network had was purchased, methodically, over years. 23 people arrested that morning. Executives, account managers, a compliance officer who had flagged nothing in 7 years of internal audits. 3 individuals with no official role at Blackstone. Their names appeared nowhere on corporate filings, who were found inside the Bridgeport warehouse at 4 a.m. with access to every server and zero explanation for why they were there. The financial numbers alone are almost incomprehensible. $4.6 billion in fraudulent stock loan transactions. Approximately $840 million in identified laundered funds at the time of arrest. 42 shell companies across 11 states. 19 offshore accounts. 2 cryptocurrency wallets holding assets that investigators valued at over $60 million at time of seizure. And the physical seizures from the warehouse, $11 million in cash, vacuum sealed and stacked in military surplus crates. Not business cash. Not petty cash. The kind of cash you keep when you need liquidity that doesn't touch a bank. Victor Salazar was taken from his office without incident. No resistance. He said nothing. Agents described him as calm in a way that unsettled them. The calmness of someone who had planned for this moment and was still calculating. What he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that the Bridgeport server drives were already decrypted by mid-morning. And what the forensic team pulled from those drives in the 12 hours after the raid went far beyond Chicago. Client communication logs, routing instructions, coded operational calendars that mapped out fund movements months in advance. The network wasn't local. It wasn't even regional. Threads from those drives connected to entities in Miami, Houston, Los Angeles, and 2 cities in Mexico. Financial nodes, transfer hubs, addresses that matched locations already flagged in ongoing DIA and Homeland Security investigations that had nothing to do with Chicago, nothing to do with stock fraud, and everything to do with what moves through this country every single day. We thought we were taking down a financial fraud network, one agent said. We were. We just didn't know it was also load-bearing infrastructure for something much larger. The investigation continues. Several individuals named in the server documents have not yet been apprehended. The offshore accounts are subject to international asset freeze requests involving regulators in 4 countries. The alderman has retained counsel and issued a statement denying any knowing involvement with Blackstone or its operations. And Victor Salazar, still calm, still calculating, sits in federal custody, facing charges that carry the weight of decades. The fentanyl killed neighborhoods. The cocaine killed families. But money laundering on this scale, dressed in suits, filed on time, approved by the right offices, that kills something harder to rebuild. It kills the systems people are supposed to be able to trust. This is what happens when ambition has no floor. If you're still here, you've just seen what most people never look at twice. Tap like so this reaches more eyes. Comment expose if you think every financial regulator in this country should be independently audited. Share this, because silence is exactly how networks like Blackstone survive.